Hello and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk, part 2 of the Metropolitan Division preview for the 2024-25 season. If you missed our first episode, the Carolina Hurricanes, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Washington Capitals, go back, subscribe to the show, and check that one out. Justin, my co-host, I don't even think I said my name. My name's Mark. This is Justin, and we're here along for the ride. We're going to preview every team in the National Hockey League. So far, we've gotten through the Central, and now we're making our way through the Metro. But Justin, how's it going?
Oh, good, Mark. How about you?
I'm well. Have you been able to watch any preseason hockey so
I
far?
watched a little bit. Yeah, I watched the Rangers and Islanders last night. I'm sure
Oh, you saw
Patrick
everyone
was.
die.
Yeah,
Not literally. Sorry.
yeah. We'll talk about the Rangers and Islanders in the show, but
Yep.
yeah, and I didn't do that on purpose either. But
Some big news coming up. All right, that
mm,
was just announced an hour ago, which by this point people probably have seen by the time you're watching this. But 1 hour ago, announced some injury reports for what happened in that game. Why don't we just start with the Rangers then?
okay, I like where your head's at. Let's
Seems
do
like
it.
they've got some things going. Like you said in last night's game, Islanders Rangers, and this is like the whole reason why people hate the preseason, because Ryan Lindgren and Artemi Panarin both go down with an injury, and Artemi Panarin's injury looked scary. We now know that it is not serious. So, Rangers fans, you can breathe a sigh of relief. However, Lindgren is going to miss some time. So, not an insignificant injury. Like anytime in the preseason somebody gets hurt who's on your roster, that sucks because it's preseason. And you hope that for Panarin, I know it's not serious, but you hope that it's nothing that like carries through the season or anything like that. Like we've all heard that. Oh, it's not a serious injury. And then in January, they're like, maybe we should sit him because this has been nagging.
Yeah, I had an audible gasp when I saw. So Lindgren's injury
Right?
probably occurred during that fight. They think
Yeah.
they say multiple weeks at least, but it was the hit on Phil Petel. It was knee on knee, and that one I was just like, oh man, this guy couldn't catch a break last year, and now he gets this. Like I thought he was going to be out. He returned, thank
Yep.
goodness. So
Okay. So we can, I think it's fair because I was totally planning. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to talk about like cap implications. The Rangers are going to have LTIR Panarin for 4 months. There was a lot of, and I wondered when I kept reading some of the articles too that were like, this could be a seismic shift in the Rangers season. I was like, you're just trying to get me to click on this, you jerk. So
sure.
turns out that's what it was. It was like pure clickbait, but it did have some implications if he actually was hurt. But let's dive in then, knowing that Panarin's actually going to play. We don't have to change as much as I thought. If he truly had been hurt, it would have been a big difference. But let's talk Rangers. Let's start with that forward group that really has not changed all that much. How do you feel about the fact that the Rangers have not changed much other than bringing in Riley Smith?
Yeah,
From the
love the addition of Riley Smith. I think we've been the Rangers, let's just say the Rangers have been looking for somebody to play that right wing spot for seems like a few years now with Zibanejad and Kreider. They just can't get anybody to match. They tried to do Capo Caco for a while, then Lafreniere, and it just really didn't really work out. And they brought in Blake Wheeler last year, just didn't again, not a good fit. So I
I
like
believe we said that it was a terrible we were like,
we did.
"This is going to blow up in their faces," and it did.
But I get it. They didn't have any money. They didn't have any cap to buy to bring in a big name free agent. And you know what? They got Blake Wheeler. I think it was like 850 last year. So, but low risk, high reward. It didn't work out. He was injured. It just they didn't seem to meld to bond well, whatever you want to call it. And Riley Smith, I love the addition. I think obviously he's got the Stanley Cup pedigree. He's been a top line guy for so long. He's played with speedy guys. He's played with very skilled. He's got a great hockey IQ, a little bit better than I think Blake Wheeler. And so to me, I think this is going to be a awesome fit. And what's even better for this team, I think, is last year we saw the emergence of that Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere line. So for me, I'm excited to see what Lafreniere can do. And now this just takes pressure off that Zibanejad Kreider line, so they don't have to go out there and be that top line, right? I think really, if you think about it, in my opinion, they're the second line right now in this Rangers compared to Trocheck and Panarin. So for me, I'm fully expecting that line to stay hot. I think Lafreniere is going to have a 70 to 80 point season this year.
All right. Yeah, that would be finally meeting expectations of a first overall pick.
Yeah. Finally,
Thanks.
yeah, you gotta give everybody's gotta give these guys time to shine, and for me, he wasn't a generational talent like a Bedard coming out
No,
of the draft.
but
My
even
expect
he sure got going quicker than Lafreniere,
okay,
you
yeah,
know?
that's
At least he was really good defensively earlier on.
yeah. What I will say in Lafreniere's defense is he's a left winger, and they've moved him over to the right side since he's been with the Rangers because obviously Kreider and Panarin, so he
Yeah.
has nowhere to go. So he's learning a whole new position. So I have a little bit more patience for him. But when we talk about this forward group, though, the only other thing that really concerns me is the depth at this forward group. I think Filipito's going to be fine, but what am I getting out of Capo Caco? He was just god awful last year, in my opinion. And again, he's in another contract year. So is it time to move on from this guy after this season if it just doesn't work out?
I yeah, when you consider his 22-23 season, 40 points, which was like, okay, things are turning, like we're going in the right direction, and then to only have 19 points, granted in
It's
61 games, but still less than a 30-point pace. That's just not good enough, even for a third line player. For a guy that you are hoping to move up in the lineup, there's a lot better. Yeah, okay, 30 points. Like, yes, the expectations are high, but you can find a player who better fits a third line role that could put up 30 points and kill some penalties and have maybe a better fit with your team. I'd say he has like arbitration rights next year, but my guess is if it doesn't work out this year, if we're at the trade deadline and it's just not working out, my guess is they use him as a trade chip.
yeah, for sure.
'Cause
I think
there'll be some team out there who goes, "We'll take a flyer on him and you can have our UFA."
oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
I think even with the if we have another bad season, right, I still think there's gonna be half the league that's still gonna wanna take a chance on this guy because he's still young enough.
only
I
23.
think the talent's still there. The concern I have, though, last year is no Filipino, so to me, this is a make it or break it year. If assuming Filipino's healthy throughout most of the season, I think you have to be at least a 30 to 40 point guy just with that kind of
At
sentiment in the middle.
least. Definitely. I think now shifting to defense, where we know Ryan Lindgren, he's gonna miss weeks. My assumption is that means he's out for the beginning of the season. If you're saying week
Oh,
to
yeah.
week, what the season starts in 2 weeks or so, a little more than that. Lindgren gonna miss the start of the season. And fortunately, you've got okay depth. You have enough high-end talent on that decor with Adam Fox and Truba and Keandre Miller, Braden Schneider to some extent. It starts to fall apart there, though. And I think that injury could have more implications for this team than like people go, "Oh, phew, Panarin isn't hurt. Thank the Lord." Your number 3, 4 defenseman is out, and there's really not a lot of talent in there to go replace him. Like Chad Ruedel is not the answer here, and I there's really not a lot in their system to bring up. Like Ben Harper can sneak up there and play in the 5-6 role here and there, but they don't have a lot of depth there on defense. So that could be something that stings them early on, and just not having that depth there. And but what it might do, Adam Fox may have a bigger role to start the season. Where like normally maybe you try to just ease a guy in a little bit, like a Norris Trophy winner. You don't need him to come out going crazy right off the bat, but he may need to start playing 27 minutes a night right out the chute.
Yeah. So for me, okay, Ryan Lindgren, he's Adam Fox's defensive partner, and he's a stay-at-home kind of guy, right? He provides that stability on the back end and lets Adam Fox do his thing. We know Adam Fox can pretty much do it all, but it allows him to push up in the play, move the puck up, and really use his legs, which I think is a benefit, right, for the Rangers. It's a benefit for his style of play. But you look at one guy I look at is Keandre Miller. I think he's going to get some more ice time out of this, but he's a guy who's firmly planted on that second line. I think he complements Jacob Truba's style of play very well to where you really don't want to bring a guy like him up because he's another guy that likes to use his feet, likes to push the plays.
So who are you gonna bring up to play on that top pairing with Adam
So
Fox, if
I
it's
think
not one of those 2 guys?
you have to look at Zachary Jones, in my opinion. He's a young 23-year-old defenseman, but to me, I think this is an opportunity for a young gun like this to get some opportunity to play a few extra minutes every night. Now, I think they'll probably start off by just rotating guys in and out of maybe Keandre Miller, Ryan Lingwin. They might even try to get Braden Snyder to maybe move over to his left side and see if that works out a little bit well. But ultimately, I think you're just going to have to do it by committee, really.
But
Now,
you're
if
gonna see if somebody can fit up there, and I guess in some ways, fortunately, this happens in the preseason, so you get some you can try things out.
Yes.
before the season starts. And yeah, Zachary Jones, I mean, hey, he's had a couple good years in the AHL, 35 points in 21-22. He had 31 points in 54 games 2 years ago. And then he only played for the Rangers last year. He was mostly a healthy scratch. He played 31 games and had 9 points. Just hasn't played a lot. Like he played 436 minutes last year. So it would be a big ask to me to go, let's start you the season with Adam Fox. Granted, he would be a great insulator. So
Yeah. No, I agree. I
do what
don't
you got to
know.
do.
Yeah, I worry about the depth, right? Obviously, we've got some young guys on that third pairing, but outside of Chad Ruedel, your next best guess is Ben Harper. Maybe you go to a guy like that. But to me, there's not a definitive answer, right? In the minors where there's a 7-8 guy that was going to get the call up for this kind of situation. But to me, I don't really know who you call up if you're the Rangers. There's no one guy that I'm looking at and saying this is going to be the guy that could come in and provide a little stability while he heals up.
Yeah, and we're not like it's not like there's a lot of really like I suppose a Kevin Shattenkirk is somebody you could look at to bring in, but he probably would be a bad fit with Adam Fox because Shattenkirk is more of the puck moving guy anyways. So if you're gonna have deploy him, you probably want him on your last pairing and he's somebody who can give you a shot at moving the puck maybe, but you probably want more of a stay at home guy, and there just isn't that player out there who I don't know who Alex Goligoski's already retired. Just maybe a Mark Giordano could be like he's shown that he can come up and he can play minutes above his pay grade and be okay for 5 to 10 games at a time. So maybe Marco Scandella's still unsigned. There's a stay-at-home guy, but yeah, that's kind of all I can. Can you tug Mark Stahl's heartstrings? Get him to unretire real quick. He did
Uh,
officially retire, I think, right?
Mark Stahl?
Mark
Oh, yeah.
Stahl?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
officially retired for sure. Yep.
but those are who's out there that aren't signed to any kind of PTO or which I suppose you could go snag any guy who's signed to a PTO too, but,
What about
um,
Mark Giordano? What's he doing with his life?
so that's what yeah, Mark
Yeah,
Giordano
I know.
he my guess is maybe he's waiting for this opportunity. Somebody gets hurt and he can slide in.
There you go.
He's just not he's just not very good anymore. He's 41 years old, so he's not fleet of foot, but,
No,
um,
and you don't need him to be. You just say, "Hey, just stay
yeah,
back at the red line and blue line. Don't come up any further
right.
than that." Just let Adam Fox
It's
run
like
around and
roller
cover both the
hockey.
left and
Just
right
don't
side
even
and
go over the center
roller
line.
hockey.
Now, all of this to be said, they have Igor Shesterkin, who will be looking to have a bounce back year from last year. He certainly had some very good stretches. He was still a 913 save percentage through the whole year. It's just that far cry from that 935 that he had a couple years ago, and I think the hope for him, I'm sure, is to get back to that point, and this is a contract year. They're talking it just came out that the Rangers have said, "Yeah, we're willing to pay him more than Carey Price was paid." So, he is going to be the highest paid goalie in the history of the NHL.
Yep,
But he's also
absolutely.
said, "I'm not gonna sign during the season," which to me is saying he's gonna have an unreal year. That's what he's thinking. And he's just gonna pay me what Austin Matthews is making.
Ooh,
He's
Austin
just
Matthews money.
gonna continue to push it. And if he can do it, if he can get back to that 935 save percentage and he's getting 11.5, 12,000,000, so it's gonna be interesting. And that only bodes well for the Rangers. Think
Nice thing
about
for the
quick.
Rangers, they don't really have any big names coming up over the next couple of years. Yes, Keandre Miller, he might get an extra million or 2, but you know what? If you're the
If
Rangers.
Lafreniere gets 70,
Oh,
80
yes.
points like you're predicting, he's gonna get paid 9,000,000
But
and
here's the flip side of that though is, I think if I shouldn't say if, it's just a matter of when they get Shesterkin signed, they're gonna move Jacob Truba's contract after the
true,
season.
true.
So there's $8,000,000 for
But
next
then you
season,
don't
and
have a defenseman. So,
you know what? As much as as many penalties as he gets, I think they'd be okay.
do you think that they will trade him during the season?
Not
Because
during
he
the
was
season.
his name was out there big time in the during the offseason.
Yeah, I think depending
Detroit
on
was rumored
Detroit was
quite a bit.
rumored, but he squashed that one, which I'm glad. But at the same time, I would have liked to seen him with Simon Edvinsson. That would have been a nice second pairing, but
Be your next Nick Cronwall.
oh no. Nick Cronwall could score a few goals. You know what? I will say I think it's more or less likely to happen during the offseason when teams have a little bit more cap space. $8 million is a lot of money to squeeze in, especially even at the deadline for any team. And so it'll take incentive to get him moved. And I think when you only have 1 year to eat and maybe the Rangers keep 2.5 million bucks of it, you could probably throw in a third, second round pick and probably get somebody like Utah or Chicago to eat that last year. We'll see. I think, again, he's going to get moved in the offseason, and that'll just free up a little bit of money for Lafreniere and Shesterkin's contracts.
All right. You made me look up Nick Cronwall's stats to see if who has scored more goals between Jacob Truba
Ooh,
and Nick Cronwall. Now, Nick Cronwall played, oh gosh, 15 seasons in the National Hockey League. His first two were 20 and 27 games. So we'll say he played like a full 14 years. 953 games. He had 83 goals and 432 points.
bad. He
His
was an
his
assist guy.
his best regular season was a 15 goal season with 36 points total. That was 11-12. His best points was in 13-14. He had 49 points and 8 goals that year. So he's broke the double digits twice. 11 and 15 goals he had. And Jacob Truba has scored 42 goals in 408 NHL seasons. He had 10 goals in his very first year in his rookie season, and he scored 11 in 21-22. Those are his two double-digit goal scoring. So if we were to basically, he's played a little less than half of the games that Cronwall's played. So if we go times two, he scored a total of 42 goals in 408 games. So 84 goals in 800 something games, and Cronwall had 83 goals in 953 games. So, and now I know the last 4 years of Cronwall's career, he had a total of 12 goals. So most of his goals came a little bit earlier, obviously during the prime, but I'd say they're pretty close, even in their goal scoring abilities.
I'll say this, Cronwall was always a second liner. Truba started out, I think, his career as a top line guy.
The
After
least he's ever averaged, the lowest minutes per game for a year was in 22-23, he averaged 21-12. Last year, he averaged 21-15. The most was 24-58 in 16-17, but he's never had more than 24 minutes since then, and only more than 23 one other time. So usually, I'd say like his career average is 22-24 is his career average.
okay, so
So
I'll throw this out there. Cronwall actually had a 50-point season in 08-09 for the Wings.
oh, he did, yes, yeah, there it
Yeah.
is. Yep,
I had to
I
look that
missed
up
that one.
because I
Sorry, I
remember there
missed that one.
was a season where the Red Wings were the only team in the NHL to have 3 defensemen with 50 or more points. So
Was that
Rafalski,
Rafalski
Lindstrom,
and
and
Lidstrom? Yeah, okay. Yes, it looks like he played 21-42. So, Truba has played 1 more minute per game throughout his career.
adds up,
Uh,
baby.
Actually, it's less than that. It's about 40 seconds per game. So, he's basically played 1 more shift per game over the course of his career. Yeah, we could go down that road.
Uh-huh.
Actually, not a horrible comp to compare those 2 guys. Like, Truba also had a 50-point season. In his, let's see, that was his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th season, and Cronwall, it was his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th season that he had 50 points. Not a bad comp. Truba
Okay.
and Cronwall. It's just Cronwall was on an epic, an epically good team for several of those years.
That he was, that he
Cronwall
was.
won the cup he made it to the Stanley Cup Finals twice and would have been in the conference finals a couple times too. Gosh, now somehow we've gone down to Nick Cronwall. This is my fault. Okay, all right, that's it for the Rangers. Where do you think the Rangers will finish? How do you think they're gonna do?
Do we wanna give our predictions at the end and go
Sure.
through? Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think we did that for the last 3 teams.
that's true.
Let's hold it.
Okay. Let's go New Jersey Devils. We'll
Okay.
stay in the area. New Jersey Devils have added some pretty significant talent, adding Brett Pesce. That was a big addition on the back end, and Thomas Tatar is back in New Jersey, where I feel like he last was productive. And, yeah, what else do we have here? I think that's the main additions. I know they got Kevin LeBanc Is,
Jacob Markstrom, baby.
had to be Jacob Markstrom. Yes, yes. Of course.
Gotta get some love for the goalies.
Yeah, how do you feel about the Devils and their senior citizen goaltending duo?
Seniors. This
Actually, they have 3 goalies that are 34 years old. Markstrom, Allen, and Michael Hutchinson.
oh
I think
goodness.
Michael Hutchinson is there on a PTO.
Yeah, I think so too. But you know what? I love it. I don't care. Go get your guy. I think Allen, of course, Allen's only going to be there for 1 year. So I don't have high expectations, but I do think in a backup role, he's going to
He's a
play
good
well.
1B.
Yeah, he's a good goaltender. I thought he
Yeah.
did well in Montreal, and he looked pretty good last year in New Jersey for the limited action he had. I think, what, 13 games? So 900 save percentage, probably the second best out of that group. Going, yeah, second to Capo Kakinen, who is no longer there. But honestly, I think Jacob Markstrom's going to come in. He's going to feel renewed, rejuvenated. He's coming from, I hate to say, just a bad Calgary team. And he wanted to go there, right? He waived his no trade clause to go there. So he's excited. And he plays, in my opinion, in a much more talented system with Sheldon Keefe there as the new head coach, which I think is going to be just as big of an addition to this team as a guy like Jacob Markstrom. You've said it here multiple times, and I don't think he gets enough credit for the defensive work he did with the Toronto Maple Leafs last year. And I think you look at the pieces he has on the back end now. I could just say Dougie Hamilton, and that's enough. But Brett Pesce, Brendan Dillon, Simone Nemec, and Luke Hughes whenever he gets healthy. These are some really good pieces.
Yeah, you can't deny that Sheldon Keefe did take a so-so, like, individualized players from the defensive side and really brought them together, made them much better. Team
Mhm.
defense was better overall. He has shortcomings, but he's still he made the playoffs every single year that he was the coach of the Leafs. No matter what was going on, they were always securely and no question asked, they were in the playoffs. The only year that there was a little bit of a question mark was the very first year that he took over when Mike Babcock was fired, and Babcock was fired because the Leafs were out of the playoffs come November, and he managed to pull them back into the playoffs. So I think because of that, he is just a great regular season coach. He's consistent. No one's getting beat into the ground in game 51. Like, he does a good job at managing guys and taking the blame, taking things off a guy's shoulders. And I think coming from the old school Lindy Ruff vibe, I think these players are really going to like it. And I think their first year with him is going to be really productive in the regular season. Playoffs aside, and this team's going to get back to the playoffs.
Mhm.
We'll see how they look throughout the regular season and if they look playoff ready. But hey, Keefe never had this defense.
Yeah,
So
no doubt there. And I think too,
and he never had these goalies either.
right? Yeah, you're not wrong about that. I mean,
They tried to get Markstrom when he was there a couple times, I think.
right now, I will say you don't have an Austin Matthews in there, but damn, Jack Hughes is a pretty good replacement.
You've got, like, decent comps to
Yeah, and Nico
there's different
Hischier,
world.
in my opinion, is the new Patrice Bergeron of this league for me. He's a great two-way centerman. Um,
Not Barkov, eh?
Barkov's
Barkov.
in a league of his own, in my opinion. That's just a whole nother discussion. But yeah, I think again, Nico Hischier's one of the premier two-way centermen in this league. And when you look up and down this lineup too, I think even now you could make an argument that their forward depth is even deeper than he had in Toronto. When you look at guys like Andre Palat, Paul Cotter down there in that third and fourth line, Eric Halla, I think he's got some great tools. And
Yeah.
for me, I want to see what he does with Timo Meyer because I've been disappointed
Mm,
since he's been there. And I think new coach, hopefully
yeah,
Sheldon Keefe, who's worked with a lot of talented guys like this, can get him going.
yeah. Put him on the wing. Keep him on the wing. 2 players on this team have won the Stanley Cup. Do you know who they are?
I know that's Andre Palat, and then
Right?
I'm going to say Thomas Tatar.
No, Thomas Tatar did not win the cup.
Was
He
he
was
not
with
with
the Wings a little too late.
That's right.
A
You're
little
right.
late.
You're right.
It's actually Paul Cotter.
Paul
You said
Cotter.
his name.
Yep.
Yeah, he won the cup with Vegas
You're right about that.
a couple years ago. Yeah, that would as far as this team's playoff experience, that's probably the one thing you're looking at and you go, a lot of these guys have yes, they've made the playoffs, but there's not a lot of winning here. And Sheldon Keefe comes from a place where he has also not won a lot. That's the only part of the marriage that makes me uncomfortable. But
I will say a couple of years ago against the Rangers, the Devils looked pretty good. So
it's true. That Rangers team, there was something weird about like, individual that year's team. They just underestimated the Devils so much, and the Devils just exploited the Rangers' lack of ability at 5 on 5 or on yeah, 5 on 5 because their power play was just crazy but the Devils just pushed them on 5, and that's where they beat them. And I think since then, the Rangers have taken some steps to be better 5 on 5.
Yeah, agreed.
We shall see. I think the Devils will be better. They're a playoff team because of Keefe. Keefe will make them a playoff team. They're not missing the playoffs. I'd be shocked. Okay, let's go New York Islanders. Stay
Let's
in New York
yeah.
one more time. Yeah, this team has been I think the biggest question mark to me here is Sorokin. Like,
Mm.
this team is driven by Sorokin and the Varlamov, like, I'm scared for the Islanders because there is not a whole lot up front. They haven't done a ton to change this team really since going out and grabbing Bo Horvat, where you went, "Oh, finally, they're going for a bigger name," and they really haven't changed a whole lot. This team still is not gonna score goals. So there needs to be a really good Ilya Sorokin, and he struggled last year. A 909 struggled in comparison to what you're expecting, and what you're expecting is necessary for this team to win. Like, he's coming off a 918, 925, 924, and then 909, and his goals against average shot way up as well. He really struggled. They brought Varlamov in to play a little bit more. Are we going to get the Sorokin that we have grown to love that can carry this team to the playoffs?
Well, listen, I'll just say this, and this is the only concern I have when we talk about goaltending, right? Patrick Waugh, being the former goaltender, the former Conn Smythe, the former Vezina winner he is, he's not going to ride one guy and just let him ride it out through the season. Let him figure it out, right? You're struggling. Let's keep riding you and see what happens. If some guy's struggling, whether that's Varlamov or Sorokin, he's going to go to the other guy right away, pull the trigger. He's not going to hesitate. And I think a
Yep.
lot of times with goaltenders, and I think this was probably the issue last year with a guy like Sorokin, is goaltenders are all about confidence and mental headspace, right? So if Sorokin's down,
You would know.
if he's struggling a little bit, Waz's not going to hesitate to go to Varlamov, and he might. I'm just at least from what I saw last year, he's not going to have that opportunity to try to figure it out and reset and get back in the groove of things. Whether or not Lou Lamoriello comes down and says, "Hey, we're paying this guy $100 million. We need you to play him." I think Waz's going to just tell him to piss off. I'm playing whoever I want. So that
All right.
that could
Yep.
end up biting him in the ass. I don't know.
Yeah. My expectation is that he bounces back. Very few goalies have just straight 9, 20 plus seasons for 10 years in a row. Like, it is difficult. You are very dependent on the team in front of you. However, that team really hasn't changed very much. Like, that defensive core of Polak, Pellick, Dobson, Mayfield, Romanov, that's been pretty standard for the last couple of years. And that's what kind of worries me too, is that they didn't really make any changes. They didn't make big adjustments to the decor, and you're coming back with pretty much the same exact top 9. So that I think they're just running it back, see what we can do again because they maybe don't feel like they can make changes. I don't know, but it just
Well,
doesn't seem like this is a team that is going anywhere forward. Like, we're just staying pat, gonna rely on our goaltending, and let's see if we can milk this baby a little longer.
yeah, and that's the problem. They don't have money to add. So they went out and they brought in Anthony Duclair, Stanley Cup champion, and I thought that was a good addition, especially at $3.5 million. I'm happy this guy finally isn't bouncing around anywhere. But
Right.
when you talk about that same forward group, obviously they got rid of Cal Clutterbuck, Matt Martin on that fourth line. But when I look at the bottom 9 of this forward group, Brock Nelson, Kyle Palmieri, Anders Lee, Pierre Engvall, these are guys who, in my opinion, just lack foot speed, right? And as the league just continues to get faster and more skilled, are these guys going to be able to keep up, right? So I think the way they play, they don't need a ton of foot speed. And thank goodness they've got Matt Barzell, who actually has foot speed, and maybe even JG Pajot, you can throw him in there. But to me, this is a team that's just going to rely on sitting back, wait for other team to make mistakes and try to capitalize, right? They're not going to try to push the pace. They're not going to try to score goals on you every single game. Now, maybe Anthony Duclair, that top line with Barzell and Horvat, maybe they play a little bit differently, but I think a majority of this time you're going to see this team wait for others to make mistakes and try to capitalize.
That's how they've done it.
Yeah.
And I think that the other teams in this division are getting tougher, like tougher to play against, and the Islanders are staying still.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're gonna be a real bubble team. Even though last year I thought the same thing and they ended up like more than squeaking in. They did pretty well. Once that craziness at the end of the year ended, they managed to pull themselves up pretty high. They 94 points. They made the playoffs like somewhat handedly, like they were 3 points up. So they still a bubble team, still a wild card, but they made it minus 17 goal differential. They had the second least amount of goals scored for any playoff team. So I just don't see that changing. They didn't do enough to move the needle. Duclair's a nice player, but is he the guy who's going to come in and on his own drive a line? No, I think he's a good fit almost everywhere he goes because he plays well enough. Like his expectations are like, hey, come in and try to get 50 points. If you get 40, that's all right. Get like 40 would be, yeah, it's still a decent season. He had 42 points last year. Make
And he
43.
plays well with high skilled guys, so I think he will fit in good with that top line of Horvat and Barzell. But if again, I don't know. I didn't get to watch him enough in Florida to see really how his two-way game is because I know that's going to be I think Wa's going to demand a lot out of his players when it comes to playing both ends of the ice. What he can bring as far as that's concerned, I don't know, but I think at least Horvat is going to play well enough there to cover for some of his mistakes. But it's
Yeah.
just, again, I go back to your point, right? Can they get enough goals from the rest of this group? I'm not confident.
Yeah. And you think, I think that the Capitals are a little bit better. I say the Red Wings are better. The Penguins are probably going to have a better year than they had last year. The Flyers might be probably around the same spot, but who knows? With Michkov coming in, he could change the whole franchise, and the Flyers could be a lot better. I think the Sabres are going to be better. The Devils are definitely going to be better. The Senators are going to be better. I think like a lot of these teams, the only team below them that I'm like, there's no way they're going to be better is Columbus. Yes, Columbus is they're gonna be bad again. The teams ahead of them, like maybe Carolina got a little worse. The Rangers might not be tops of the league with 114 points. They might be more like 105, 102 kind of point team. But not a lot of these teams got a lot worse. And the Islanders just got worse because they were already old and now they're older.
A
And
good way to put it.
yeah, I gotta hope that Sorokin has a big bounce back year. Otherwise, they could find themselves far out of it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Unfortunately, I need to go.
Ooh.
So we're gonna close this, and we'll do a part 3 of the Metro. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And we'll do part 3 of the Metro, and then we'll also do part 1 of some other division when we meet back up. Probably go back to the West, do the Pacific.
Let's go, baby.
We'll finish the Flyers and the Penguins on part 3, and then we'll jump into the Pacific. You can find us on X and on Instagram and TikTok at OT Hockey Talk. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you guys real soon.